All right, welcome. So we just finished up the Whissel Weekend show that we do we tape it actually every Wednesday afternoon, goes out every Saturday. But we always like to end that show with what's called the Whissel Way Podcast. So we put this not only on Facebook, this is going out on the airs on AM 1170, The Answer. In addition, Kyle has this podcast. You can go to the Whissel Way, find that information, Whissel, Wissel. And the Whissel Realty Team is the #1 real estate team per transactions 5 years in a row. That means they've sold more homes as a team than any other team in San Diego 5 years in a row, led by one of my closest friends, Kyle Whissel, who was just at my daughter's wedding. We talked about that during the Whissel Weekend show. But congratulations, Melanie and Paul are out in Italy today, and will be out in Italy and Greece in the next 16 days. What a wonderful wedding. But, you know, that is something about the Whissel Way, is that we are a family. And, you know, Kyle being at my daughter's wedding because he's one of my closest friends. He's actually sitting at the family table. But he has a little fun with me. And he's like, how long is Jason going to talk? Because it was time for the father to kind of, you know, have that little quick speech, kind of thank people for being there. Also, you know, look at my daughter and just tell her how proud I am of her and seeing her grow up to be such an amazing young woman. And a lot of that is we are a family, you know. And Kyle, even though Kyle's younger than me and loves to tease me, I'm only 11 years older. You know, the way he teases me, you'd think I'm 30 years older than him.
I actually thought you were
older.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, the way he teases,
bigger,
right?
By the way, he talks
yeah,
about
see,
it.
he's only 11 years older than my youngest, my son JJ, and I'm only 11 years older. But the way he does talk about it, it acts like he's 20 at least, right? Years difference. And actually, I have more hair on my head than he does, so I always tease him back on that on the radio. But, you know, that's what you have at the Whissel Team in the Whissel Way, is we truly are a team, and we're mentoring one another. We're coaching each other on what we're good at. So you had Luke in here, who's an MMA fighter and was an amazing high school wrestler. Mm-hmm. So were you, Jeremy, and you're also an MMA fighter. And you guys hold each other accountable because that's part of your gifts. Yep. You're helping youth. You're doing different things. Kyle's gifted in some good things, and the things he's not, he's getting training and mentoring in there, and he's getting coached. But one of the things he's always been really good at is role play and coaching us on what to say to clients, how to handle different objections and or different situations that come up on the phone. Most of our communication nowadays is on the phone. And the first time you're typically talking to a client, it's on the phone. And, you know, I get lots of calls and, hey, I'm busy, want to go. And, you know, how do you put in what we call maybe a pattern interrupt, or what are things you do? But one of the nice things you guys do every day is you guys have a role play call, right, Jeremy? So tell us, what do you guys do, and how does that work? And are you doing it every day? Is it 3 days a week? What are we doing for role play?
Yeah, we're doing like, and the goal is 5 days a week, minimum of 4. Yeah, so usually about 4 or 5 days a week is what we're doing it. Every morning, weekday mornings.
So every weekday morning at what time?
We have 2. We have 8:30 to 10:30. Most people do the 8:30.
Okay.
We you know, we get on a call together at 8:15 for about 15 minutes to start the day. Then we jump, we do our role play at 8:30, and then we're following up with clients at 9 o'clock.
Okay. So let me ask you, on the 8:15 call, how does that go? When you have a role play call, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So if you think about it, you can know lots of stuff about real estate and know everything, but sometimes when people ask you a question, it takes you a second to put your thoughts together, and it kind of catches you off guard, right? Like you have to practice that. You have to practice explaining things,
just like you do in wrestling or MMA.
100%,
right?
Repetition.
It's repetition. You're practicing it. We just talked about the last, half hour with Luke.
100%.
So very similar, right? Things you've learned in wrestling and MMA on practice and continuing, and you not only have done it, but you've coached it.
Yeah.
Same thing you're saying in real estate is you guys are practicing this on each other.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. The same way you're not going to go into a fight without training, or you're not going to go into a match without training for it. A wrestling season is you train for 5 days and then you actually compete on the 6th, right? Like you spend more time preparing than you actually do competing, and that's every sport. I hope.
Yeah,
You're
it's
spending more time
pretty
preparing.
much every sport. Like
Yeah.
football. Kyle mentions it all the time on football. You know, you spend hours and hours all week, and you literally, each play is like 9 seconds long. And so when you put all the plays together, you've practiced, say, 40, 50 hours, so you can compete for literally about 30 minutes worth of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even think about it that way. It's not even an hour because it's 30 minutes on offense, 30 minutes on defense, really.
Yeah,
special teams, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and so when you break down the plays, get rid of all the running clocks, I mean, a lot of stuff's happening. It really is a short amount of time that they actually play the game of football.
Yeah.
And that's at every level. So you guys are calling it at 8:15. Give me an example. So if I call in at 8:15, what am I going to hear? What's going to go on?
Yeah, so it's, you got an agent that's practicing being an agent, and you have another agent that's asking him questions and making sure that he can answer those questions intelligently and come across as a professional. Because, you take it for granted a little bit. It's not as easy when you don't know what they're going to ask you to be ready to answer that question, especially in a way that you can break it down for them. Because it's a lot easier for me to explain something to an agent than it is a client because there's a different level of understanding, right?
Right. So one of you act as, say, the buyer and or seller, and the other one acts as the agent, and we kind of take turns and go through that during that 15-minute practice. And, even if you're not called on, you're still listening and learning, and many times people learn better from hearing others go through a role play, whether, besides when they're doing it. Because when you're actually the one doing the role play, you're thinking, what am I going to say? What's going to go on? And you're not concentrating on what can I learn or take away from this sometimes. Yeah. So sometimes just being on the call, you can learn more than the actual person doing the practice of that agent. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. That's the real estate equivalent of watching film, basically.
So watching film, which of course a lot of the sports do.
Every football player knows that, I guarantee you.
Right, and baseball player.
Yeah,
Tony Gwynn was famous for watching all the video of every pitcher, what they like to do on the first pitch or second pitch, when it's an 0-2, when it's a 1-1, when it's a 1-3. I mean, or 3-1, I guess, in that example. Kyle would be laughing me at 1-3, right? Yeah. I guess it's never a 1-3.
Yeah.
But yeah, that gives good information.
Another good example is when you book a fight in the UFC. A lot of people don't know this. The UFC sends you a DVD with every fight that your opponent's fought in the UFC for you to study.
Wow. So it's not truly unknown.
No,
right?
you're watching. There's
you may
a different.
Have never seen
there's
them
a game
personally,
plan.
But you've had the video because UFC will provide you.
Yeah, you watch every fight that you can get your hands on your opponent to see what they do.
Okay.
And you're going to game plan around it because styles make fights.
And so the Whissel Way is you guys are doing that every single day, doing that role play, getting ready for that, so that when the call comes, when the opportunity's there, you know how to handle that client, how to assist that client, how best to answer it, and move on.
Yeah, you only get one shot at it a lot of times.
Yeah, one shot.
Yeah,
that's kind of sometimes even in fighting, it's you fight a lot looking for that one shot that'll take your client down, or in this case your opponent, right, and get that done. All right. So additionally, you guys also do a Tuesday meeting every Tuesday, at least an hour. And this past Tuesday, we had JC, one of the top agents on the Whissel team, talk about buyer consultations, kind of how he's done it for years. And he's kind of trained everybody on how he does it. Here's how I present all the information to my client. What did you learn yesterday during that meeting?
Yeah, that was super valuable. When you have somebody that's a pro like JC that's done it 1,000 times, there's a lot of room to, and you don't want to, there's things that like to you know a lot of things that like you don't even think to explain. And then like say a buyer, like you were talking about contingencies or a deposit. Like what if you don't explain that you have to send in a deposit and you go show homes, all right, cool, let's write this offer. Great. You got to wire in $5,000 in 3 days. That's something you might want to mention to somebody before it gets to that point.
Yeah, a lot of buyers don't realize.
Yeah, like there's a lot of things.
You have to do a deposit, right? We call it EMD in the industry, which is earnest money deposit.
Yep.
But I did take some of those notes on his buyer presentation, and I know the rent versus buy was huge. He kind of likes to show that because a lot of us here in San Diego, just keep renting.
Yeah.
And people don't realize, let's say your rent's $2,500 a month. Yeah, maybe your mortgage payment's $3,000 and you think, well, that's $500 higher. I can't afford it. But they don't realize they're putting $600-700 they're paying down the loan.
Yep.
So equivalently, even if you just go cash to cash, it's like my $3,000 mortgage payment, $700 is really going to what we call principal reduction / savings account.
Built into savings.
It's built into savings. So I'm paying $2,300. So cheaper than my $2,500 rent, and it's fixed. It's not going to go up every year as your rent does, right?
What's going to go up is your home's value.
Right. And that was just one example on that rent versus buy. We can go into that a lot more. And so I was putting that. But you're right. Setting expectations was big. Things even as simple as earnest money deposit, going through the contract before you have to sign the contract, right? Because you get excited, you want to write an offer on the home. How many buyers have never even looked at a contract?
Yep.
Right? So one of the nice things JC does is every one of his buyer consultations, he gives that contract, a blank one, to the client. It says, here's part of your homework assignment. I want you to review these main pages. Most everything else is what he referred to as legalese or legalese.
Yeah.
And, but I want you to get familiar with page 1 and 3 and understand all that stuff.
Yep.
So that you're ready when you find the right home, that you're not going to be like, oh my gosh, I need to read all this. Because sometimes it's all about timing, right? You need to get that offer in quick. So you better read that contract before you even write an offer.
Yeah, we don't have 3 days for you to review it and understand it.
Right. Right. So as we wrap up the Whissel Way podcast, our Whissel Way show here, what else you want to let anybody know out there?
Oh, go back to the importance of role play. What is that Abraham Lincoln quote? I think it's, if I had 5 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 3 sharpening my blade.
That's a great quote.
Yeah.
Say that one more time.
If I had 5 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 3 sharpening my blade.
So sharpen your blade. That is part of the Whissel Way. And we got to end it right there. Sharpen your blade.
Dropping knowledge.
Role play, practice. We had a great guest in here in Jeremy. We've also had Luke, one of the fighters there in the MMA, trains with Jeremy. And you know what? That's what they do. They sharpen their blade.
That's what he's doing
every morning. So again, thank you for listening to the Whissel Way. Again, this is Jason Hall filling in for my good buddy Kyle Whissel. Kyle, thanks so much for coming out to the wedding. We enjoyed having you and Brittany. And you guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Thank you. Be back next week.